Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, as you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where it's a weekend. Well, it's actually Friday. Getting down on Friday. Where, what are we going to talk about today? I don't really know what to talk about today, because I mean, it's not like I've done anything particularly exciting today. If anything, exciting things might happen tomorrow. Well, I say exciting, but not really all that exciting. It's basically, I was just like, I might go shopping, might get a haircut. Whoa, that's crazy. To be fair, getting a haircut's actually a little bit crazy, because I haven't actually gone to a hair salon or stylist for quite I think it's been years now, which is weird to think about. But anyway, hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow at 6:08 PM on Friday, April 14th, 2023. I mean, saying that, I'm still undecided if I actually am or not. I'm going shopping when, if I feel like it, I'll get a haircut. So who knows? Most of the times I just sort of end up trimming my hair around now anyway. Not trimming my hair, but not around now anyway, but I just continuously trim my hair, I suppose, whenever I feel like it. But anyway, I guess we'll talk more about the holiday conversations things. What can I talk about today? Well, that's a very good question, because I don't remember what happened next on holiday. But how are you all doing? You doing okay? I ask this every time. I don't think anyone's actually replied, which is fair enough, because I think it's kind of what we've all signed up for in these videos, is the fact that it's a bit of a one-way conversation, Like I'm talking into a mirror, or well, not really a mirror, maybe like a brick wall. That makes it seem a lot more depressing, I suppose, rather than what it is, which is a moment of fun and relaxation. Oh, you know what we could talk about? We could talk about this. This is in Mercia. Whoa. It's late enough for it to be an hour, apparently. April 22nd. It's Phoebe's birthday. Noted. Yeah, we went to visit a building, in Mercia called, I think it was called Real Casino or something, which I don't really remember much of a history behind it. I'm going to be honest, despite the fact that I read the leaflet thing that came with it, them talking about history. It's basically a place, a really rich house, kind of, where some people lived, probably a while back, a family or something. It was basically, just imagine an extremely extravagant sort of mansion thing, just in the middle of Mercia or whatever, which has now been preserved and turned into a museum. And it's interesting, because one major thing I think that struck me more on this holiday than any other holiday is just sort of imagining, trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who lived there, I think I touched upon this before, but I certainly think when you're younger, it's a lot harder to imagine. I don't know how to put it. It's not it's hard to imagine what life would have been like for other people, because that just means oh, when you're young, you don't have empathy. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, I feel the weight of other people's lives doesn't really. Well, maybe it was just on me personally. Maybe it did hit you, but I feel understanding the weight of other people's lives and their perspectives, I suppose, feels different now as an adult compared to when I was a child. As I say this before, when you're a child, especially when you learn about historical events where people went through great suffering, I don't think, at least personally for me, it's I both logically and emotionally understand very, very heavy events. These are it's extremely not just emotionally heavy events, but very sad things throughout history, and so many people suffered or died because of certain things, etc., etc. I mean, you can pick your favorite one and fill in the blank if it's in a bit of a macabre sense, but I suppose just when you learn about it when you're younger, it's very much sort of just it feels like facts and figures on a page, where it's sort of you read it and be oh, this sucks, I can't believe it. But I don't know, it's very different, I suppose, actually being in the environment itself. I think, there's a difference between learning about, World War II, for example, through a history textbook, or then visiting an actual memorial site, especially one which tries to sort of get a sense of scale of how many people's lives were lost. And I think that sort of that sort of feeling becomes more and more stronger in me, I suppose, when I get older. Every time I go to these areas, I'm just I don't know. I guess it's sort of putting myself in their shoes. To a certain degree. I mean, when I was younger, we went to a battlefields memorial, I think, which is basically memorializing World War II, maybe World War I as well. I don't actually remember. And there's a lot of things there's things like wars of there are wars of just lists of people of who unfortunately fell in World War II. And at the time, obviously, it's hard to describe, because I don't want to say like it had no impact on me. It did have an impact on me, but I feel like the impact is different now looking back in reflection, because, you know, the people who, you know, names are up on that wall, a lot of them were just like probably like 18 or younger or something, right? Now me as like a 15-year-old or something, I think, going to visit it, sort of like, I don't know, I suppose when you're 18 you sort of feel like adults, you know, 18 to 21, be like, whoa, these people are like, you know, in university, they're like adults, they're starting an adult life. But now I'm 25, I'm looking at it being like, these people are younger than me. It's sort of like just the way it hits emotionally feels completely different, being like I was just like a child back then. And like imagine myself in those shoes, and I physically, not like I physically can't, but I don't think I emotionally could to the extent, because of just being in the actual situation itself is quite different from just imagining it, you know. Because one certainly has a weight of reality and the other has only the flights of imagination. So basically what I'm trying to say is, visiting these things like museums and historical sites or whatever, I feel like it's not like a grander sense of purpose per se, but it has a grander sense of impact, I suppose, when I visit them nowadays than when I did when I was younger. Because rather than just being like, look at this cool thing, it's like, wow, imagining myself in this life just feels so insane. And luckily, I suppose, not to keep it all so sort of doom and gloom, the one I'm talking about today is that actually, I suppose, on the opposite sense of a scale, where it's not just like this is intense suffering, but this would be like intense lavish luxury. This place was huge. It was like a mansion. I mean I think it says enough, the fact that it was basically a museum. It was a museum. Like, imagine living in a museum. It is absurd. You know, you walk in through the entranceway. I think I took pictures of like every single room. You have like an entire dedicated room for the library, and it's not just one room, it's multiple stories. It has a balcony, it has reading areas, it has study areas, and it's got like an awning which you can walk up. It's got a spiral staircase in the middle of it, and that's just your library, or just your record room, or just your archive. It's insane to think about. I can't even imagine just sort of like waking up each morning and be like, you know what, I fancy reading a little bit of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens or something. Just like I'm gonna head over to my library and be like, I can't find it, this library is too big, I can't even find the book I want. Just sort of sense of scale is insane. And it's not even that, it's not just the fact it's just a library, because, you know, you don't really get that sort of sense of scale, I suppose, when you look at your local library or whatever. You're not just like jealous of librarians being like, well, I can't imagine working here every single day, which is only, you know, a few steps off living depending on your job and your work-life balance, I suppose. But it's like such a lavish library as well, like with these intricate details and patterns, and these like even like the eaves, like the things which are holding up the awnings themselves, and like the actual like poles, I suppose, on the framings and the bookshelves. They're so intricately detailed, which is, it's crazy to think about, like how many thousands of man hours went into decorating this, and it's just a library for like a family or something, and that's just one room. But like I don't know, I feel like I'm going insane, because I feel like probably the very human normal response is most people are just like, yeah, you know, I felt that every single time I went to a museum, that's why I love it. Or you be like, yeah, I understand that, but, you know, it still doesn't, you know, it's still things of the past, so it doesn't impress me much. And the infamous words of Shania Twain. But I don't know, it's just like this is how I feel about it now, and thinking about how I used to think about things before when I go to museums, it just feels like I've somehow like gained a new perspective, but not really. It's not like I gained a new perspective per se. It's more like I'm now looking at things through a different lens, which is just making, if anything, it's a good thing, because it's making it so much more extravagant. It's like, it's crazy. It's like you can appreciate things more. I don't even remember what this room is. I think this room was like the ballroom or something, and it was like this ballroom was modelled after like the streets in Spain. It was like, it had like these balconies or whatever where you can look out on, like these like giant doorways and ornate frames. You look up at the ceiling, it's got like a literal like masterpiece work of art. And it's like, I can't believe it. And they have this massive like chandelier hanging from the ceiling, and this is just a ballroom. This is where you just go to dance. I'm just like, I can't even imagine that sort of like level of wealth or luxury, I suppose, that level of lavishness. Would I want to live in a house like that? I mean, I wouldn't complain if I did, I suppose. As much as I would like to admit to myself being like, I'm not materialistic, I suppose I'm not really that materialistic. Like, I'm perfectly content with the things I have, but it's a sort of a thing where it's like, if you have that as an option, it's like, would I rather live in like a one-person apartment, or would I rather live in a giant mansion? I'd be like, I'm not going to turn down a mansion, I suppose. But it's also like, I would be very content living in a one-person apartment at the same time, you know? I don't know, these feelings are weird to untangle. I suppose it sort of taps into sort of like self-indulgency, which normally you don't really get to tap into. But it's not really self-indulgent, because it's not like you're indulging yourself. It's more like empathetical imagination of indulgence, which doesn't, I don't even think that's a thing, but you get what I mean? Anyway, it's a very cool place, like both from a touristic standpoint and from like imagining myself in those shoes sort of standpoint. Like, we went to this room, it was just like literally just a room full of mirrors. I think it was literally just a dressing room, and it was crazy. And to think also as well, like it was like a recreation, a preservation. It's like not all the original things were the original things there. It probably was even more expensive and lavish back in the day or whatever. Oh yeah, and it was just like a dressing room, and it had just like this ridiculous like work of art which had like, I don't know, some relevant significance. Like, I can't even remember off the top of my head. I think it was to do with some like angels and gods or something. It was just crazy. I know, we took some nice selfies there. Oh yeah, we went to this next room, and I thought it was just so extra. It's the fact that this was an entire room just for fencing. Like, can you imagine? Just being like, oh, you know, I have so much money and I love to fence. I'm just going to build myself an entire fencing room, and it's just like these really fancy paintings just adorn the sides of a wall. It's crazy. It was literally like this building was like a street. Like, this was one entire, I guess I'm not sure by definition if it's one house. But I'm just like, imagine living there as a child. You're basically like living in like a mini hamlet or something. And then this is just your house, you know, and be like, oh, I'm going to go to the fencing room after just, you know, some breakfast in the dining room restaurant area. And, you know, I'm going to have to walk down the street and turn left at the end of a corridor because it's so big and it's got like an open air thing. And you know, I had to walk up the stairs, and it's just like, whoa, it's like I'm living in, it's like I'm living, yeah, in a mini hamlet. It's crazy. Or maybe it's not crazy. I don't know. I'm just like, I can't imagine it. I think I said that a lot during this trip as well, because I was like looking at my gardens being like, I can't imagine living in such a lavish garden. Just being like, oh, you know what, which section of a garden do I want to, you know, walk around today, you know, for my morning 30-minute walk, because you have like 12 different sections which all could constitute a completely different experience if you walk through them. And it's like, I can't imagine. That's insane. An entire village could live here. I guess is the entire point of it. 3, 6, yeah, that's more than 10. Perfect, we can sell these. What other sort of cool buildings were there? Oh, the bathroom was incredibly fancy as well. I don't know why we have pictures of it here, but so be it. And I don't know. Yeah, it was just crazy to think about. Why am I here? This is not Nooks. It's just so weird to think about living in the lap of luxury like that. Now, mind you, I've never been to any, like, I've had friends who, you know, are certainly more affluent than average. And obviously, I've been to their homes because, or not sometimes. And it is, like, interesting, I suppose, always getting, like, a different person's perspective of life, isn't it? You know, certainly, I think a lot of people might even look at me, you know, I'm not here to, like, be unaware, but what's the word? Like, oblivious, I suppose, to, you know, the luxuries I've had, like, growing up. You know, I have to, you know, I do have a comfortable life, you know, thanks to my family and all that. So it's just like, whoa, you know, you might be like, this is a bit hypocritical of you, I suppose, like talking up things like this. But I think it's just more like everyone's got different experiences throughout life, and seeing it through the veil or through the eyes or even through like the mirror reflection of another person's is weird. But not weird in a bad way, weird in a good way, I guess is what I mean. It's cool, perhaps is what I mean to say. But yeah, obviously I've been to, like, I think from a friend back in secondary school who, you know, was certainly more affluent than the average person, I think. And like going to his house, like, for the first time was wild. And even just talking about it now, it's probably not like the craziest thing out there or anything. He was just like, you know, like upper middle class or, you know, upper class. And I don't really know where the cutoff points potentially are, but for me, being from like my middle class-ish sort of families, like, you know, it's a weird step. I don't know where I'm going with this, and I guess we're talking about like class systems or whatever. And I'm definitely not educated enough, I think, to necessarily comment on political, like, or economic consequences of this. I'm just talking about literally my own anecdotal reality of what happens. But like going to visit his house, like his house was crazy. Not only did he have one house, technically he had like 2 houses right next to each other, because he was staying in one where he built up the other one, and then they were just going to move into the other house. But his house had like 4 floors. I can't even remember. He had a rather large family. It was like him and 3 other brothers, and it was crazy that, you know, just walking into his house and it just being like in this giant like open foyer, and you go into like, there's like so many rooms, and like the dining room is like huge. We had like a big dining table, and I remember just like I went there once for dinner, for like a roast dinner with me and like a few other friends or something. I can't remember why we had that dinner. It was a lovely time. His parents were extremely lovely. To have a dinner, I just remember looking up and just seeing like an open sort of skylight window, being like, wow, this place is awesome. Because I suppose that's sort of just the perspective you have as a child, just being like, wow, this is so cool. You know, you're like, whoa, your parents got you a PlayStation 3, that's awesome. You know, I have such naiveties of a child. No, I'm not going to say naiveties. I'm going to say innocence. And it's, you know, I don't know, nostalgically comforting. I suppose to think of a background. Like he had like this computer area where it was just like rows of computers, not like huge rows or anything. It was only 4 computers, to be fair, but to be fair, there were like 6 of them in that family. And you go upstairs, and then they all have their own like individual bedrooms, and you go upstairs again, and you know, and bathrooms or whatever. There's more bedrooms. There's like a gym in the very top floor, and there was like a big open space which I remember like was being used. I think his mum was like taking pictures of things to sell online. I don't even remember. It was like a photo studio or something. It's just wild to think about. I guess it's wild to think about because, you know, it makes you reflect on your own indulgent fantasies, and, you know, being like, oh, you know, if I had a house, of course I'd have like one with 3 floors. My top floor would be like a dance studio or something, or I'd have my own like recording booth area to produce music, or I'd have like a home theatre, etc., etc., etc. And then just, I guess, the realization that fantasy is a reality for like people, and then you just see it in real life and you're like, whoa, that's wild. You get me? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is like going to this like Royal Casino thing, going to these museums or whatever, that's like another step up from that. You know, that childhood experience, or that childhood experience. This was like an entire step up from that, an entire like leap upwards for mankind. Crazy, huh? Sorry, sip of water because I was kind of thirsty. I don't know where I was going with this. I don't know. Fancy house? I'm just trying to think what this would be called. What this video is going to be called. Anyway, and just completely random other thing. I don't know why this place was called a casino, because obviously in my mind, casino is just like gambling sort of like place, you know, Las Vegas, Macau. I don't know any other like big casino areas, but I don't know why this place. There must be another like word, that another meaning of casino or something. Is it Rio Casino de Murcia? Yes, this is it. Rio Casino de Murcia. Like, why is it called casino? You can look it up, like, if you want yourself. Royal Casino Murcia. This is the one we went to, yeah. Like, look at these pictures, whoa. Like, this is just a ballroom, and there was, like, 14 other rooms, which were all just, like, similar levels of extravagance. It was crazy. They only had pictures of a ballrooms, because I guess a ballroom looks the most extravagant. Oh, there's a picture of a library here. And the dressing room. It's just, I don't know. Like, I can't even describe it. Anyway, define casino. A public room. It's from Casa for house. Casino that facilitates gambling. No, I don't want a gambling one. I want other type of casino. In Valencia, it's a municipality. Municipality. There we go. I was trying to think how to say that word. No, I want to be like casino theatre? No. Casina. Okay. It means like a pavilion. I just want to know why it's called casino. Royal Casino. I don't know. Whatever it ends up being, that's probably what I'm going to end up titling this episode. But anyway, should we round this episode off here? If you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.